Good evening. My name is Dr. Alexander Pope Norris. I am one of the trumpet players that works with the Mingus Big Band, as well as the Mingus Orchestra and occasionally with the Dynasty. I was first introduced to Sue Mingus and the organization through my teacher, the late great Lou Soloff. He got me subbing in the band back when I was a student of his back in 1992. And I did sporadic gigs with the group until about 2000. Then I took a long hiatus, and in 2011 I was reintroduced to the band by my good friends Kenny Rampton, George Culligan, and Brandon Wright. Playing this music and working in this organization has been a tremendous learning experience and a very uplifting joy. And I feel honored to be part of Mingus's legacy in this fashion. I want to thank Sue Mingus. I'd like to also thank Zach Kirisme, Liz Torres, and Sarah Williams for keeping the thing going. I want to thank all of the musicians, past and present, who've been part of this. And I want to thank the great Charles Mingus for leaving us this colossal artistic legacy. If you'd like to donate to the band, you can donate through this, paypal.me/MingusBands. Tonight I'm going to be presenting a few of Mingus's compositions. Some of them are going to be through solo trumpet, a little bit of solo flugelhorn, and I'm also going to be using this fantastic play-along that you can get through the Mingus Institute. It's Charles Mingus, More Than a Play-Along, and it is really quite a first-rate play-along. Members of the Mingus Band are a part of this rhythm section, and that includes Tommy Campbell on drums, Boris Kasloff on bass, and the late, great John Hicks on piano. Great to see all of you, and hope you enjoy. The first song I'm going to do is the Mingus classic, Peggy's Blue Skylight, and I'm going to do this one on solo trumpet. 1, 2, 1, 2. This next composition I'm going to play is another Mingus classic called Sue's Changes. I believe he wrote it for Sue Mingus and her magazine called Changes. The reason I picked this one is because it's just a stunning composition with multiple themes, some fantastic harmonies, and some ingenious tempo changes. The other reason I picked it is because although I've played it a lot with the Mingus band as an ensemble member, I've never gotten to solo over it. These pre-recorded videos have allowed me the opportunity to investigate these pieces a little further so I can solo over them with some authority. So here I go with my rendition of Sue's Changes, and I'm going to use the play along for this.
Sue's Changes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The next selection I'm going to perform for you is the Mingus composition called Duke Ellington's Sound of Love. This composition has special meaning for me. The reason why is because when I was in college, I was in a jazz combo. The tenor saxophonist, a very fine tenor saxophonist from Baltimore named Richard Dorsey, introduced this song to me. In the same combo was the great pianist George Culligan. Mingus listeners may know that name because he played with the band for quite some time when he lived in New York City. George now enjoys a prolific career as a music educator, performer, and composer. So here I go with my rendition of Duke Ellington's Sound of Love. I'm going to play it solo flugelhorn. Thank you once again for listening to me tonight. I've really enjoyed giving you this presentation of some music that's very near and dear to me. I want to remind you once again, if you'd like to donate to the organization, you can donate through paypal.me/MingusBands. paypal.me/MingusBands. And this last song I'm going to play is Charles Mingus's Slippers. This tune was taught to me a couple of years ago by Conrad Herwig when we were working at a clinic for the Mingus Institute. And I've loved the song ever since. I also selected it because it's fun to play up tempo and I wanted to do something with the mute. So here I go with Slippers, and I'm going to use the backing track on this, the play along, I should say.
Slippers. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, Sarah, your turn. Go.
You're listening to Dr. Alexander Pope Norris. That was burning. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here. Guys, if you're enjoying the broadcast, you can, there's a virtual tip jar, paypal.me/MingusBands. Also want to let you know we're going to be here with Dr. Pope Norris next Thursday, July 30th. We've got a bunch of trumpet players together, and we're going to do some Mingus listening. But for now, let's jump right in. We're going to ask you some questions.
Okay, great. Am I on? Am I unmuted and all that stuff? Okay,
No,
good.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me do this. It was really fun to put this together.
Pleasure. Yeah, there's so much melody. You ooze melody. I I mean, a question from me to start us off. What do you think about Mingus melodies?
I think many things about them. They kind of they contain a lot of material, a lot of history in them. There's obviously a great reference to the blues, but also that they're long and beautiful and complex at the same time. Sometimes they're uh, like in 4-bar phrases, 8-bar phrases, but oftentimes it's just long and go in an unusual phrase length, but often resolved in just a very natural way. And he always picks the best harmonies to go along with that melody.
Yeah, you picked a couple tunes there that had some interesting forms. Um,
I love Suits Changes in particular because it's got several themes going on at once, and the tempo changes. I love that too, and it's fun.
yeah. If anybody has any questions for Alex, you can drop them in the comments. Um, Alex, someone wants to know, how are you able to be such a consistent player? Not just chips, but ideas.
Oh wow!
You're full of
Well,
ideas.
well, thank you. Well, I mean, I I do practice. Like I have a pretty regimented routine every day in terms of my physical chops, and I've found that I need to do it, and that helps me be free with my ideas. I think that with the ideas, I try to listen a lot, and this period where we're in many ways our lives as performers are on hold, uh, that's afforded me a lot to listen and just
Yeah.
kind of listen to the masters. And I've there's so my favorite players, on all instruments. There's so much great development when they're playing, and that helps fuel my ideas.
Do you have a process to listening that when you like to dig into something? Um, do you transcribe it all? Do you how do you like to listen? Are
I
you
used I used to
keep
transcribe
on listening
more.
for a while? Yeah.
Um, I've thought about getting back into it, but I guess in a way I don't so much transcribe solos, but I transcribe the tune. Like I transcribe the tune in my ear, and that's why lately I like the process of as follows, which is instead of just put a record on and then toss it away back into my library, I like to keep it on my CD player or my record player for a bunch of days. So I'm listening to it a lot, and that way I get to know the record. I get to know each one of the songs. I feel like I don't really know the record until I know the form of all the songs, and from the form comes the melody. And then after the melody comes the harmony. And then when I feel like I know the tune in that way, then I can listen to each of the solos and get so much more out of it.
Very cool. Yeah. Wow. Do you feel like listening to Mingus and practicing Mingus music, do you feel like it's influenced yourself as a composer and an improviser at
Oh,
all?
big time. Especially as a composer. I haven't. I do compose a lot. I haven't. I only have a couple solo records out. I do want to do more, but listen, preparing for this has allowed me the opportunity, like I said earlier, to delve into Mingus's music and to really study it in a lot more in depth. You know, uh, Being in the band, it's been a deep honor. But as I delve into this music more, I realize that most of what I know is through the arrangements in the Mingus big band, which is great. But delving into Mingus's original recordings, I feel like, man, I'm learning so much more. Um, and with Mingus as a soloist, I hear so many different schools. I hear like a hardcore swing thing. I hear like he's one of the what I call, I don't know how people feel about this term, but I call it one of the OG beboppers, like original gangster beboppers,
Yeah.
not like second generation or third generation, but like he was really there, like in the days of Bird and Diz and Bud Powell and Long. He was right there. So that is obviously a major part of his playing. But also you hear like he embraced the free thing. He having played with Duke Ellington and and Lionel Hampton. You hear the deep swing thing, uh, and you hear all this material from from the classical influences and all. And I've gotten to investigate some of his third stream music, which is just stunning. You know,
Yeah, yeah. It's
and
yeah.
and I hear all this, and I was listening to something the other day. I think it was from the Mingus in Wonderland recording, and he was, I can't remember what they were doing, but he just quoted from so many songs. He was like quoted 9 songs, and inside of one of his solos. Like this guy, he just had so much music in him.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, he was big on contrafact too.
Oh shoot, yeah, really, there's some great ones, and yeah, and he's a big influence on me as a composer in the sense that, I mean, the obvious thing about Mingus is that there's so much he touches on each major cornerstone of jazz history. You hear Jelly Roll Morton, you hear Duke, of course, Bird, Monk, uh, and the modal thing and the free thing. You hear all this, but there's a lot more to it than just that. Um, First of all, the way he leads a band, I've discovered that he never does a song the same way twice. Like, take a song like Peggy's Blue Skylight, with the different versions I've heard, he'll do it straight, just completely straight ahead one night. He'll do it at a medium tempo another night, and then he'll pick sections that are rubato, and then he'll take certain sections and vamp on them, and kind of the cats in his band, it's good to talk with Jack Walworth about this. Like, you're playing in his band, you really had to be ready for that.
Yeah,
So that was awesome.
it's an
And
interesting balance of precision and fluidity.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And as a composer, I mean, he is a big influence on me in the sense that I love his melodies. They're beautiful, but they make logical sense. It's like you're kind of like taking a pen and just kind of drawing along. And he puts these incredible harmonies that are rooted in the bebop tradition, but honestly, it becomes its own animal.
Yeah.
And that's been a big influence. Some other ways his compositions have been an influence. Now, I'm not going to reveal what I'm writing now, but I've experimented with some, you know, political current issues themed tunes, and also I have I am processing how I could work with spoken word and poetry and writing some long form music, and he was a big master at that. I mean, I think about what was the album where they had, it's so funny, as a kid I heard like Branford Marsalis had this album called Scenes of the City, and I didn't realize till recently that Mingus did that a long time before Branford put that out. And also I also think of Weary Blues with Langston Hughes, and Freedom, uh, one of our favorites, Don't Let It Happen Here, with that beautiful speech from the German pastor. uh, I always forget his name. uh, Martin Martin Niemöller. I should have researched this before I got here today.
Aaron Ship.
Pardon me?
Aaron Ship. Oh, sorry. I was reading the wrong comment. I have to fact check that. I'm sorry.
Um, I think it's Martin Niemöller,
Yeah.
but my pronunciation is good. I apologize, especially if there's any descendants of him listening. But anyway, my point is, yeah, the spoken word poetry thing, the extended form things. These are things I'm processing right now, and I may reveal this one day.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to mine there. Uh,
Yeah.
Somebody wants to ask you, what do you recommend to get inside of Mingus compositions for a musician who doesn't know him or play in his bands?
Well, I'm thinking back to my high school days. I think actually, Sarah, I might have told you my first exposure to Mingus's music was through the album Mingus
Mm-hmm.
So and those are shorter pieces, and there's at least one blues on there, and they're not super complex forms, but I feel like they really give you a great window into Mingus's world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend the album Mingus and there's so many staples of his repertoire that, like, the most famous songs of his repertoire. Better Get Hit in Your Soul,
Yeah.
uh, Fables of Faubus, also, oh God, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
uh, and Self Portrait in Three Colors, Open Letter to Duke, Jelly Roll. I think that is like a great album as an introduction to Mingus's world.
Yeah. I can't argue with that.
Mhm.
If you're coming from the classical side, I might recommend Let My Children Hear Music. Might be my personal favorite.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing. When I was in college, I bought that on vinyl, and that really changed my world. It was
Yeah.
pretty heavy.
Yeah. I want to know, as a uh, as a trumpet player. I mean, you have so much agility and dexterity and melody, and Mingus is the way he writes melodies and harmonies can be very interesting. I mean, reincarnation of a lovebird. That's kind of near impossible to play on a trumpet.
It's
But
hard, yeah.
being playing in the Mingus ensembles, how do you? Are there any particular challenges that you've come across as a trumpet player? How do you get through them? How do you address to them? Does it make you approach playing in a different way, or does it? What is your experience performing the music the way that Mingus constructs it?
I think the biggest challenge for me is there are some parts that are extremely challenging, and you want to play them clean, but you also want to play it with proper jazz inflection. In other words, you can't really play it like a classical player, but you still got to play it and play it clean. And and I guess the best example of that is number 29. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, there's an actual piece called number 29, and it's extremely hard.
I don't think it's number 29 in the book.
It's not. It's actually number 53 in the book. That's so funny. I know there's at least one of my classical trumpet friends out there listening, and the way to describe it, number 20, is like, think of the Tomasi Concerto on steroids. It's that hard. And how to play that, play it clean, and also there's also the endurance factor, because you got to pace yourself while you're trying to play this. How to play it clean, but also with good jazz feel, good time feel, good inflection, and yet you got to save some steam for you hardly ever know when you're going to solo, but you got to have some chops left to solo. And here's the other thing: whereas most big bands, the lead player never takes a solo. I went through several different phases where I played lead in the band frequently, and they always made me solo. So, like, all my chops are on the floor after playing lead all night. Is oh, now I got a solo. Oh shucks, what am I gonna do? And so you got to have your chops together. And there's another funny challenge in terms of physically playing the trumpet. It's a little embarrassing, but I'll share it. When you work at the Jazz Standard, on the breaks they give you this lavish, barbecue feast. And if you love food like I do, you can't say no. And so to come back with that second set, with the tummy full of fantastic
I'm
jazz,
tired.
blue smoke barbecue, it's you got to pace your breathing and all that stuff, and that's challenging. So I hope that answers the question how to approach it as a trumpet. Now, the other thing I should add is, like, the Mingus Orchestra. That's very much more of a chamber-like thing, and that offers different challenges than the big band.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's chamber music, but it's also jazz. You can't just play it like you're in the Vampire Brass. You got to play it with the great inflection, the great grease on it. And you got to be ready to solo.
Yeah.
So these are the challenges. And what I found helps is, I thankfully, Sarah, Liz, and Zach, they offer, the opportunity to study the music before the gig. So I always try to study some of the particularly harder ones, like number 29, if it's the big band, Toto Moto, if it's the orchestra. Inquisition's another one that's very challenging in the orchestra. So yeah.
What do you let's see. Do you have any good stories about Sue? I know you travel down to Arkansas um, frequently for lessons. Um,
Yeah, this was an interesting thing that happened. I teach most summers, not this summer. I do a week-long camp at the University of Arkansas in Monticello, and I remember the very first time I went there. It takes a while to get to that city. It's two plane trips and then a long van ride. Uh, and I was with mostly people I'd never met before, and I finally got there, and it was late at night, and I get a call, and again, I'm in this new environment. I did not know what to expect, and I get a phone call at night, and I pick up the phone. Don't worry, my phone's off, and I answer it. And And it's Sue on the other line. Hello, Alex. How are you doing? And say, listen, we have an emergency situation. We need a lead trumpet for tomorrow. And I said, oh, Sue, I'd love to do it, but I'm sorry. I'm in Arkansas about to do this camp. And she said, Arkansas, get out of there right now. You know where Uncle Faubus is from. Get out of there. You know.
For those who aren't familiar, this Fables of Faubus is the reference. The Governor Orville Faubus, who Mingus wrote the song for, was the governor of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Alex, this has been so much fun.
Thank you. It's been
Thank you
fun
so
for me
much.
too.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us. And everybody watching at home, just a reminder, there's a virtual tip jar, paypal.me/MingusFans.
Oh, yes. Here it is. If it's backward, I'm sorry. PayPal.me/MingusBands.
Funds go to support the musicians of the Mingus Dynasty, Mingus Orchestra, and Mingus Big Band while the clubs are closed. Still don't have any gigs. Working on it. Hope to see you soon. Join us next week. We're going to be back with Dr. Norris and a few other people, Randy Brecker, Anthony Fazio, Tatum Greenblatt, Philip Harper, Alex Sipiaga, and Walter White, and probably Jack Walrath. We're going to all get together and have a trumpet hangout. That's going to launch tomorrow. Check out tickets at the Charles Mingus Institute or charlesmingus.org. I'll look for that tomorrow. And Alex, it's so great to see you.
Thank you. It's great to see all you guys too. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hi to all the band musicians at home. We miss you. And hi to the audience and all the club owners. We miss you too. And we hope to see you guys real soon. I hope everyone stays safe and stays healthy, and long live live music. Viva Charles Mingus.
You got it.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Take care, guys.